how do you define entrepreneurial excellence? You mentored a lot of entrepreneurs. You've been an entrepreneur yourself. You are an entrepreneur yourself. What does it mean to be an excellent entrepreneur?
I think maybe it gets more down to values and traits for me than anything. And so there's one on curiosity and conviction where they're balanced out. So you have convictions, you have these strong beliefs, but you have this curiosity not to try to prove yourself right, but to try to learn what the truth is. And so constantly iterating. I mean, you hear all the different stories of how many winding roads entrepreneurs have to follow. I think of Sean Henry at Stored, that when I first met him, young guy and a deal fellow, and was building kind of a Airbnb for storage in people's houses and everything. And stored, that's what it was. But he listened to the market, pivoted, and now he's vertical B2B SaaS for D2C companies. And he just raised $200 million at a $1.2 billion valuation, right? So it wasn't, he's brilliant, he works very hard, and he had an idea, but he was curious about what the right answer was to solve a problem in the market. You hear the same with Stuart Butterfield with Slack, that initially was a video game company, and that didn't really work, but they built this internal tool and said, hey, maybe this would be interesting to other people. And sure enough, Salesforce buys it for a ton of money. So I think they're both of those things. You have to work super hard. You have to be smart. You have to be passionate, but it's really balancing that curiosity with your conviction. You need to be convicted enough to really drive for it, and then curious enough to recognize when the signals are telling you to go elsewhere.
What are there certain metrics or signals that you think folks should look at strongly? Like, so in other words, it is a really fine balance between saying, hey, like, I have strong conviction. The world might be telling me, like, there might be all these signals. The world says I'm wrong. I mean, in some ways, the best entrepreneurs are ones who ignore some of the world advice where it says, you can't do this, right? So Elon Musk, his rocket ship recently blew up. And, he, of course, did all these things with rocket ships and landed them that no one ever thought was even possible. And how is some random tech, finance tech bro able to go into this whole new space? Everyone told him he was crazy, right? None of the major government, Russia and the United States, were never able to build it. And yet he just kept pushing straight through and ignored the signals. Or maybe not, or maybe you'd say he didn't. He had enough signals internally that he was right.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like, he knew what his signals were. He looked at what are the components that need to go into these rockets? What are those prices and how do they change over time? And so he found an entirely different way to do it. So yes, he was hearing, hey, under the current structure of how things are done and built, you can't do this. But he just went to the commodities market and looked at, here's everything that's going on. Here's the price of batteries over time. Like, he did his own analysis and said, this is wrong. And I imagine on each of those things, he was able at each point to say, hey, was my conviction correct? I thought the price of nickel would be at this. I thought this would look like this. Is it? Or was I totally wrong? Because there are a lot of times you can be an entrepreneur, you can be brilliant, have a great idea, but your timing's wrong. So you were, quote, right, just not at the right time. And I think that's where having those metrics, it's not a generic thing. It's knowing, hey, here are the things that I believe to be true, and here's how I'm going to hold myself to account to see if they truly are reality versus just something I hope would be true.